Welcome to the Salt Circle Podcast. My name is Hank. With me is Ben.
Hello.
Say hello, Ben.
Oh, I beat you to
Nice.
it. Yeah.
Oh.
Don't tell me what to do.
Oh. Well, I was gonna. Now I don't know what to do, and I can't tell you what to do.
I'll tell
Shit.
myself what to do, and what I'm gonna do is explain what we're talking about.
Clever.
Yeah. We're talking about adaptations. I guess we never really specified now that I think about it, but in general, pretty broad topic. And
Yes.
I think as far as media goes, 2018, it's a good time to talk about adaptations. You got a lot of stuff to work with. You got
There's always plenty of adaptations. Adaptations,
I mean,
aplenty.
yeah,
Depending on
but
how
like-
general you want to be with it.
Yeah, sure. But, I'm thinking especially with, superhero movies. Like, we live in an era where everybody gets a film. Everybody.
I mean, there have been plenty of movies that people didn't even think of as adaptations that were adaptations of books. Like that.
Fair enough.
There are a lot of people weren't complaining about, oh, they're just making movies out of books all the time. Fucking Jurassic Park is garbage. Like that wasn't a thing. I don't think that was ever a thing.
I mean, that's totally different, though. Like, they had John Williams on soundtrack, so doesn't actually count. It's not. If it would have been announced that Lord of the Rings was happening and John Williams was doing the sound, like everyone would have been fine with it. No controversy, no fuss. It would have been like, yeah, we trust John to bring it home. So this idea started because I'm taking I call it a Sherlock Holmes class. Really, it's a Conan Doyle class. But
Sir Arthur to his friends.
Sir, yeah, just Sir, maybe. We took a Sir class, and we've gone through mostly Sherlock Holmes, and then we're later tackling Lost World and White Company. But with Sherlock Holmes, we also looked at a ton of adaptations, and I actually forgot I was gonna dig out a little sheet we had gotten because some of these are like, straight adaptations. Like, we are going to take the story that was written and we are going to try to recreate it as faithfully as possible. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like, you have House.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have the general kind of...
We're taking this idea
Yeah, and we're going
applying
to...
it to our
just-
serialized television
yeah.
program.
Yeah, and then, stuff... we watched an episode of, like, the original... Shit, I don't know if it was NCIS. I think it was NCIS.
NCIS is a show.
Yeah, it's I can't even think of the guy's name. Really charismatic. It doesn't matter. It was garbage.
Mark Harmon?
No, there was definitely an L in it. There was definitely an L.
Okay.
It's like a tan dude, real cocky. Talk down. I mean, he was anyway. So we looked at a bunch
No
of
idea what you're talking
adaptations. I'll figure it out at some point.
All right.
And we actually had a crossover class with I think it's a media editing, like an editorial. Yeah, an editorial class. So they were looking at like all of the editing work that goes into things, and they were talking about, you have... I'll use Lord of the Rings as my base because that's what I'm most familiar with. Like, you have what Tolkien ended up publishing, or what ended up getting published, and then you have what he actually wanted, and you have then maybe some of the later stuff after, like, Christopher Tolkien comes in and changes a bit. Like, which one is the true version? Is there a true version? Like, the context of all this. And... that's relevant to... We kind of took it as a you have the original Sherlock Holmes stories in the Strand, in the magazine. There's a lot of Sherlock Holmes at the beginning of this podcast. We're gonna go into other shit eventually, but just
Yeah.
so you have the original
This is where
one.
the idea generated. so-
Yeah, and also I got stuff to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have the original stories in the magazine, with no like context notes. You know, the readers didn't really need them, and they also had the illustrations. The version we're reading, no illustrations. They're a selection of stories. It's not all of them. I think it's a good chunk, but it's not all of them. And like every other line, either a little note explaining what something is, or, and it's all in the back, it's not in your face, which was at least nice, or just like hypotheticals, like, oh, this could be referencing this, but we don't actually know because Doyle put like half of the detail in that other people might have, which is good or bad depending on who you are. And yeah, you know, it got me thinking about adaptations in general, and there's a lot to discuss. I mean, I think it's an interesting topic, certainly. And also, I was enraged by all of the Sherlock Holmes adaptations. So, you know, ideas stemming from hatred, seething red anger.
The generation of all good ideas, burning hatred.
Yeah. I think some of these adaptations, the ones that were just straight, like, we're going to try to portray Holmes and Watson just as they are in the stories. We're going to just stick to it. And some of these are like the original adaptations, if that's not a bit of an oxymoron, like, you know, the silent film era stuff. And like, those are okay, I guess. But then you have stuff specifically. I'm gonna leap right to the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes. That and
That movie is garbage.
that and the BBC show, which we watched an episode of. And I think this is a common thing, and it reflects in-house a little bit. But particularly with the character of Sherlock Holmes, what I noticed was that they take his original character, which, you know, he's a genius. He's witty as all hell. He's good at deduction and induction, like big to small, small to big. And he's kind of, he's asocial, but he's, you know, there's that bit of disconnect. But he's not a dick. Like, he condescends to people sometimes, but he's not like an ass about it. And obviously in House, like, you know, sometimes
House's dick.
there was like
Yes.
that one episode, that one time where he wasn't as much of a dick as he could have been, and that's like his version of not being an ass. But even,
Heart of Gold, though. Heart of Gold.
yeah, yeah. But even with like the RDJ movie and the BBC show, they just turn him into a complete and total asshole. Like, Benedict Cumberbatch is like going off on this chick, like just using all of this deductive reasoning to just fucking roast her. And then it turns out it was unfounded, and he has to say sorry, and it's like this whole thing. And I'm like, I get the appeal, because like that's a fairly popular like archetype. I was leaning towards that one. Yeah, like it's a popular thing, but it's just how I never realized like how blown out of proportion it was. Like, I never really had thought about it. So that was a thing. And then along with his character, just so Conan Doyle started writing Sherlock Holmes, and it took off, and it was super popular, and he's like, damn, this is a good way to make some quick cash. So he kept writing them, and he was equal parts happy that it took off because he was making money from it, and it was a very consistent income. But he was also upset because he put like zero effort into it, and he was kind of pissed that everyone liked that instead of the stuff that he actually cared about, like The White Company or The Lost World. So after a while, he's like, fine, I'm done. And he wrote the final problem, and that's where Moriarty comes in, and like it's implied that they both died, and people got pissed, so he brought Holmes back because he couldn't take the backlash. And that whole story deviates so far from everything that Sherlock Holmes is about. Like, he's solving domestic disputes, he does some missing person stuff. You find, like, there's a thing with the Blue Carbuncle where some dude like stole a goose, and then it turns out there was like $1 million stone hidden inside. Like, but the point is, it's all like stuff that interests him personally, and it's, you know, there's that ambiguity of like, well, he lets some of the people go in the end because he knows they're not truly criminals, even though in the justice system they'd be fucked up and down. But then in the final problem, he's like, there is a crime syndicate that I've been tracking for years, and finally, I think I can and it's like, no, this isn't what? You just randomly have, like, this whole thing going on, and, like, an arch nemesis and all this stuff? Like, it's totally deviating from everything that it is. So naturally, that's what the films go for. Like,
Yes.
they
I mean,
all
that's-
take that thing. And
Films love to take the giant thing without doing any of the work or any.
Yeah.
They just, the big thing, that's what we want for our movie. Our movies are big. Movies are big.
And I guess, like, I will begrudgingly agree that for a like hour and a half, 2 hour long film, that makes a bit more sense. I will give them that. You're going to get a lot more material out of that whole story than you would out of, like, I don't know, Holmes finds a missing horse. Like, it's a thing.
Holmes finds a missing horse is a story for an episode of television,
Yes.
not for a movie.
But we also watched the BBC show. They do the same thing. Like,
Doesn't that show have the one show episode I think it had werewolves?
I mean, that
It's like
sounds
a big episode about werewolves.
fucking right. I think it just I have not seen any of it past the episode that we watched, which was Scandal in Bulgaria. They changed the name. It's not Bohemia. I think they changed it to Bulgaria. But yeah, like at one point Irene Adler is like, Moriarty sends his regards. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, I'm just sitting there seething silently while everyone else in the class is like, oh my God, because they're all into it. I'm just...
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I just don't like Benedict Cumberbatch, so
I mean,
that's my
also
problem with that
that.
show.
Also, it's up there with, is that the Holy Trinity? Is that right? Supernatural, Doctor Who. Is it Sherlock? I can't think of the third show that I'm thinking of for, like, Tumblr.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think that's it.
I think Tumblr like Sherlock.
They definitely like Sherlock because they all fucking ship Watson and Sherlock, which then Martin Freeman got all pissed about, and it was amazing. Like, he got really upset about it. But yeah, so all of this just got me thinking about adaptations and stuff. So yeah, that's the intro, I guess. I can keep going, or if you got stuff to, if there was something you were thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Sherlock Holmes dude. I really like House though.
Yes.
And to me, like, House is a great adaptation just because it takes like the like low level idea. Like, you've got House as Sherlock Holmes, you've got Wilson as Watson, and then you set it in this medical thing, so he has a problem to solve every week, basically. And then it does like other stuff because it's a TV show and it has to keep going. But I just like taking like that kernel of a good idea and turning it into something different and new. I like that form of adaptation.
I think they also, it's a very good set. Oh, it's one of those things where, like, suspension of disbelief, right? Like, House would have been fired in real life. Like, that dude doesn't have a job in reality. But in this fictional universe, it's really nice.
To be fair, at least at the end of the series, he's like presumed dead as a wanted man. Like, they don't like let him like just be.
Yeah,
I'll say. But
they set it up in this fictional universe where he has that same sort of thing as Sherlock does, where he just picks what he wants to do to an extent. Like, it's a little more, nuanced than that. But at the end of the day, he's like, yeah, I don't give a shit about your stupid cold or whatever. Oh, this dude keeled over dead after pissing the color blue and has I don't know, a pimple on his foot. This is the stuff
Yeah.
I want. Like, I don't
I mean,
fucking know.
it's about solving an interesting problem. It's not about like empathizing with people
Yeah,
or
no,
whatever
and
anything.
that's
It's just yeah. And
good.
I think having a character who just wants to solve a problem is a good
Yes.
protagonist for a story. Like that works for the structure of stories.
This is I just remembered. We also watched I don't know what network it was on. It's just like it's just called Sherlock. It's not the BBC one. I can't remember who airs it or who owns it or whatever.
Is it the one where like Lucy Lawless is
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
the
on
female
network
Watson.
TV. I forget which. Channel.
Also trash. Also garbage. Also absolute fucking shite. First off, cop show to the max. Like,
Yes,
just
that's
that
a total
very
cop
much
show.
cop show.
It's just a
But
cop show.
they took a lot of stuff that, like, you know, is Sherlock Holmes. They just like warp it for that network television cop show. But the line that got to me most is that, you know, Sherlock is still this genius. He's still incredibly intelligent and witty and blah, blah, blah. And he's talking about, like, there's a plane crash. And, like, this whole time, like, there's this sort of theme of, like, why are you so obsessed with this plane crash? Like, what's going on? Who hurt you? And it comes out, like, finally, he admits, like, fine, I don't like planes. And the reason why he doesn't like planes is because he thinks too much. Like, is the pilot newer? Like, no. Go back farther. I go onto the plane and I see the pilot's hand trembling. Why is it trembling? Is he nervous? Is he newer? Is he calming his nerves with a drink? Like all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like in a box here, that makes sense. Like you're thinking about it too much. You're just getting too much in your head.
Very neurotic. Yeah.
He's totally fine traveling by car, and if he was actually smart, he'd know that statistically he's way more likely to die that way. Like,
Yeah,
it's just one of those oversights that is beyond infuriating. So, I just remembered that. Yeah, House is good.
Yeah. I don't think I have much else to say about Sherlock Holmes, I would say.
Totally fair.
Just because, like, well, I will say I had an affection for Moriarty, but that's just because of the Star Trek Next Generation
You did mention
episodes
this
where, like,
once, yes.
they did Sherlock Holmes, like, in the holodeck, and then the Moriarty hologram, like, figures out how to becomes like a villain and figures out how to get out of the like it's just dumb.
Great.
But it was fun.
Oh, that's pretty.
But it was but I like that because they didn't have to. They just had Data as the stand-in for Sherlock Holmes. They didn't have to like
Oh, that's pretty great.
do that character. They just had
Okay.
their made-up hologram Moriarty to deal with.
Gotcha. I was gonna say something else. It just totally slipped my mind. It was probably not important.
Probably not.
Probably. Or it was
Yeah.
great and it would have been the keystone of this podcast, and now it's gone forever. One of the two. No in between.
But I'll just like the thing adaptations. The way people like react to them is kind of weird, just because like there are plenty of stories that are taking from other stuff that's like not a strict adaptation, that if people don't like realize it, they don't care or whatever. It's just like people get precious about source material, I would say, when
Oh, yeah.
they realize something's an adaptation, rather than if like something is just, you know, ripping off a lot of stuff but presenting it as like an original thing. Like if you're like, I don't know, for whatever reason, that's like the show that's coming to mind is like Monk is like kind of a Sherlock Holmes thing, but it's not at all. So it never gets compared or anything. It can just be its own thing. People don't have any like preconceived notions about stuff. Just like the risk of when everything's labeled as an adaptation or or something.
Yeah.
Rather than just people creating original stories, even though there's genre or whatever, and like literally just doing the same story over again. But
Also, for anyone curious, we were dangerously close to going to see Sherlock Gnomes.
yeah, we had a death pact, but Ben backed out. So.
I mean, it's a good thing I did, though, because I would have been trapped in that movie theater. Like, that snow came down real quick on Friday. And I don't want to be stuck in a movie theater watching Sherlock Gnomes on loop.
Watching Sherlock Gnomes just for like 5 times. Oh God. What hell?
I came out a different man.
What hell?
I would have walked home. It's like 15 or 20 miles. I would have walked home. It's not that far.
Yeah, no, I wasn't looking forward to just watching that movie. That movie looks terrible and boring. So
Yeah.
I feel like.
But it almost
But a
happened.
bad idea is a bad idea, and I'll commit to a bad idea. That's the kind of guy I
Do it
am.
for the podcast.
Yeah,
But we didn't.
but we did not. No. Yeah. So how do you want to? How do you want to like? I could just talk about other adaptations I care about, or
I mean, going back
There's
to
something about
the book to movie thing. I think it definitely like it's like you mentioned, people not knowing something's an adaptation, then learning it is, and suddenly the source material becomes like the holy grail of text. I think that's just
Yeah.
like it's a really easy way for people to feel superior about something.
it's also
Yeah.
it's a weird thing just because like when you compare like the comic book thing, it, like still feels new, even though it's been like it's totally dominating the movie scene. But the way people talk about it as like it's a fad, or like it's a thing that happens that is like it's gonna stop or whatever.
It's like a
but the book
long-term
adaptation
fad.
thing, yeah. But also they don't talk about it the way people talk about books. With books, it's always been with adaptations, movie adaptations of books is the book's better, but the movie is good. Like
Yeah.
the movie is entertaining and it's a movie, but obviously if you're into the book, there's like more in the book, so it's like a bigger thing, so it's better. Which I feel like is generally true about these comic book movies too. Is like they're trying to like take these expansive works that are like long ongoing things and like make this movie out of them, which it doesn't necessarily completely fit into this box. But that never comes up. No one ever talks about that at all. That like it makes sense that these comic book movies aren't as good as comics, but they're like fine popcorn movies that with special effects.
Is that could that have something to do with just like, and I this is half literally asking because I don't actually know, like something to do with maybe the demographic of people who read comics being smaller, and or though like
That's
people
definitely part of it.
people who do read comics like maybe way more used to like, yeah, they're doing an Archie movie or something, like, okay, that's fine, I don't care, he fought Predator once, so like whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you like for someone who reads comics, like I would assume that person is more they're more, I guess, desensitized to the idea of like just another universe happening. Like they can accept it kind of that way. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
like
my thinking.
the fun of these comic book movies at first was just that they existed, because when I was a kid, the comic book, like I watched that Captain America movie that was like direct to TV or whatever. That was terrible, but I kind of liked it just because it was, Captain
Yeah.
America in a movie.
And now it's like throw all of the money at it.
Oh, yeah. And so like then they started making ones with like actual budgets, was just cool, but it wasn't like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I loved that there were Spider-Man movies, but I don't love those movies. And the more Spider-Man movies they make, the less I care about the ones that are not great. Mm-hmm. Like the idea that like, oh, why are they making another Spider-Man movie? It's like, because maybe they'll make the good one this time. Is
Yeah.
like, is part of the thing. It's like, there's the material is actually strong enough to make a better movie. Like, was basically my thing with comic book movies. We still haven't seen the best that you could get out of that, so they might as well keep making them because they'll probably get better. They still
Yeah.
haven't kind of figured out what they're doing. Whereas, like, the thing with older genres is they've kind of like they've peaked in certain ways of like they've made there are these great examples of why this is perfect, and so any new one has to then compete with all that history too. If you're just doing like straight, if you're just doing a Western, any Western you make has to compete with all the Westerns that ever existed because they're so similar. I mean,
Okay.
that's true for like a new Spider-Man movie has to compete with all the Spider-Man movies, but those movies aren't that good, so
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
yeah,
There's way
remake
less.
stuff that was like had a good idea but wasn't great. Like that makes way more sense to me rather than trying to remake something that was already great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you
No,
can't
that makes sense.
because if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do something different anyway.
I also think like, I mean, for me, Lord of the Rings is still the big one. Like that's the, because I mean, even to this day, like so many people are still upset. And it's like varying degrees. Like I definitely fall into the camp of like, Lord of the Rings trilogy was really good. The Hobbit movies are garbage. Like, steaming dumpster pile. And
Yeah, they're impressively terrible. I was just watching a thing that was kind of explaining why they ended up so bad, but they're just yeah.
yeah. Nope,
It's just such a clear thing of like, wow, like you guys cared for these three and like took effort, and then you just had no
nothing.
time. You were just rushed and
Yeah.
spit out garbage.
Well, and it's for me it's especially relevant because we have the Amazon TV show that is going to be a thing.
Yeah,
And
because
so
Amazon wants their own Game of Thrones.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Everyone's like, we're going to have like a Lord of the Rings Game of Thrones thing, like who are they going to make fuck each other on screen though? Like, I don't want to be there for that. Gimli, no. I just, and so it is a thing, and I don't know. If I think about like the Lord of the Rings, like the book, it's a fucking great book. I love it, as we've established firmly. I also love those movies. Like they're really well done. I can watch all of those movies and be very satisfied, and then I can watch the behind the scenes bullshit and be maybe more satisfied even than just watching the movie because it's all so great. Like it's all great, and then I think about those movies as like a direct, like comparing them directly to the books. Like how did they do? Whatever. No, they're garbage. Like they're still bad. They just did not capture whatever.
There is definitely stuff like a feeling and like the nature of the way the story works in those books that the movies do not capture, even though they work, but they work well as movies. So
Yes.
I would say they're a successful adaptation in that they
Yes.
had to move this thing into another medium, but moving it into another medium means losing plenty of things that were in the original.
And I actually, yeah, I totally had this sheet that I was gonna dig out that like explained. It has like a list that we had in class of like different adaptation styles. Like there's direct, inspired, something, something, something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I don't know. It's a weird thing. And like speaking of Game of Thrones, also a super interesting adaptation. Like I'm pretty sure we discussed that in our Game of Thrones cast, like how the TV, like the books might just actually never be finished, like the TV show won.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
it's really fucking, that's such a weird thing still. And not like, I don't want to rehash that entire conversation if we had it, but just,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. There's that weird point where like it's not the adaptation anymore. It's just the original after a certain point in that show.
Yeah. So my only point of comparison for that kind of thing is with anime.
Right.
But my big one is with the series Full Metal Alchemist, FMA.
I knew that one was coming.
Yeah. Cuz that one is super weird because so the manga exists for the start of the first anime, FMA. It's kind of adapting it, but then it diverges because there wasn't enough manga at the time, and the manga goes off in other directions. So then the anime does this thing. It makes certain characters matter more than they did in the manga. But then the anime becomes so popular, it like reverse influences the manga. So the manga has to act like this character who died was more important in its story, even though he wasn't. He was much more important than the anime that people liked.
Yeah, I got you. That's
so
weird.
So it backwards influenced the manga, and then they made another anime that was more a direct adaptation of the manga. But it's also weird because it's kind of also a remake of the anime, because the anime again was such an influential thing that you can't deal without it. So when that new series starts, it kind of tries to fast track through the start that's the same as the old thing, because that had already been adapted well. So they have to they're just going through it fast. If they had, and they don't approach it as just we're making a totally original show, they have to approach it as we're also have to deal with this other thing that existed. It's just an interesting problem that existed because of the way of the production schedules ended up stacking on top of each other with these different long running series that were theoretically of the same thing, but like have like care about different stuff, and different parts of the story end up mattering.
Yeah.
It's just it's a weird thing. And then there's like the movie version of Akira, which only really adapts like the first half of that manga, and then has to like figure out a different ending in the basically in the middle of the story. It's just like,
okay,
well, if the story ended here, this is the thing that would happen.
It's just that's just reminding me of like some writing tip or whatever. Like if you get writer's block, like just keep writing, but kill everyone in the scene. How would that happen? Like if it had to end right fucking now, what would happen? Yeah, that's tried and true, I guess.
It had to end right fucking now.
Berserk, perfect anime adaptation. Perfect. The first anime, not the new one. It's garbage.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's CG anime, which is always a mistake.
Yeah, that was terrible. No, I don't know.
It always looks bad.
It very faithfully recreated an arc of the anime and didn't go past it, or an arc of the manga rather, and did not go past it. And it chose the one that made you feel the most at the end. So then you got people like me who go, God damn it. And then you go pirate the entire manga and you read the whole thing in like 2 days. And your soul slowly drains away the whole time. They did it. They fucking did it.
Yeah, they took a long running thing and they found like a tragedy story that existed within that and just told that basically.
And then I got to share the misery with Peter, so even better.
So one of my favorite all-time adaptations is Pluto, which is a comic book adaptation of a comic book, but it's a retelling of a particular arc of Astro Boy, which is like kids like classic kid robot story, but it retells this arc as like a gritty detective story, like a crime detective story from the point of view of a different character in that story.
Okay.
And then it blows it out and makes it a bigger thing, and is like has all like the feels, and is like an adult story. And it's just it's just such a good idea of like taking like this kernel of this like simple, very simple, kid friendly story, but like doing it well. Like it's one of those things you can point to and say like gritty reboots kind of are generally bad, and they're like generally a bad idea, but it's not inherently a bad idea. If it's done well, it can be very good. So that's kind of like the best example of it I can think of just finding a different way to look at this same story.
Yeah. I'm in that weird spot where like I really like stuff like that, you know, like kind of a different angle on something or like a different perspective or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's still that part of me that's like, did the original author write it? No. I don't know. Maybe. Like it's actually very there is a non-Tolkien Lord of the Rings story that portrays like Sauron and co as being the good guys. Mm-hmm. And like I'm really interested, but I don't know. That would probably happen, I think, eventually. But no, again, that's like that's a good
being a comic book fan. Concept. I think I'm more open to that because like every DC and Marvel comic book is not being written by the original creators, pretty much, who created the characters. Like they're some modern characters who were created by like the new people, but those stories are filled with people writing characters that have existed for a long time that they did not create. I mean, like, there are plenty of the great Batman stories not written by the dudes who created Batman.
Yeah, like works based in Middle Earth are like, you know, a fairly pure, faithful wife who was married, and just remains faithful to one person. And comic books are like the Village Bicycle. Everybody's had a ride.
Yeah, like Star Wars.
Like Star Wars. Okay, for like Lucas had to approve stuff though.
Well, see, Lucas is a good example to me of like why I don't always just want to see the stuff from the creator. Like, there's a point at which the original creator told like the original story, but the next thing he wants to tell might not be as interesting. He might just be doing it to do it, whereas someone who's like a good writer but also like invested in this thing might care more about like the way that like fiction comes from people who are talented writers but also originally fans of that thing can have a different feel and can like care more about minor details than like the original author just keeps going. Like that happened with Chris Claremont on X-Men stuff. He was just writing X-Men for too long that at a certain point, like his X-Men stories just like by the 90s just were not good. And other writers were writing better X-Men stories, even though he was like the writer on X-Men when X-Men mattered as like an ongoing thing. It just like he just didn't have it anymore or whatever. Like he lost the thread.
I was not expecting to be here, but I'm so happy we've arrived. I think so. After watching the Clone Wars TV show, which George Lucas also was in on, like that was also his deal. That made me realize that the prequel movies were not like the ravings of a madman. Like I can see what the Clone Wars like shows you what he wanted to do, and for some reason he didn't do that thing in the movies. Like he wrote out all this great stuff and was like, I'm going to take the worst parts of this and I'm going to turn them into the prequel trilogy. And that's what happened. And then he
Well,
watched.
I mean, the other thing I'll say about Lucas is, I mean, he only directed that first. He didn't direct Empire Jedi either. Like
Yeah.
I think he was always a better kind of planning some of this stuff out, but not the best at executing on that vision.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. But I do think it's interesting. Like, after watching that show, it was really interesting how just by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, okay, like, everything makes sense. Like, the prequels have fallen into place nicely, with maybe the exception of one, just because it's too far away from that. You know, there's like that fucking 10-year jump or whatever. It's a bit much. Like, we still don't know anything about that period, really, in the new canon, at any rate. But yeah, like, he definitely, and I mean, he had help too. Like, it was his wife at the time was also a writer. So then, yeah, that marriage ended, and he was like, I could write stuff. I can do stuff too. Fucking watch me. And he got.
Yeah, that's how Temple of Doom happened.
He like went to Lloyd, what's his name, and was like, "Hey, I'm doing more Star Wars, but we're gonna do it my way." The guy, Lloyd, whoever, was like, "If you want to do it your way, why don't you do it? I'm out." And we got the prequels. But
Bad movies. They're just bad as movies.
But John Williams, though.
Whatever you want to say. I mean, yes, the scores are good.
John Williams will salvage any bad adaptation. I don't
know that that's true. I don't think that's true.
He'll make the soundtrack.
I don't have a necessarily counterexample.
He'll make the soundtrack worth buying.
That's fair. I mean, he just does the same thing over and over again. So,
look,
I mean, that makes sense.
The planet suite has a lot of material to draw from, and it's not his fault that he hasn't exhausted it yet. John Williams adaptations, everybody.
Williams adaptations.
Mars, Darth Vader, Venus, Leia. You just called an adaptation. You're good. You can do whatever you want. Nosferatu, Dracula, like, we weren't stealing the source work. We were just, it was an
the difference
homage.
With those older literary ones is they're not protected by IP law.
I mean,
because that's why anyone can make a Sherlock Holmes adaptation.
Yeah. Anyone.
Anyone.
Even Robert Downey Jr. can get in on it. Not that he made it, but like, he could have said no.
Yeah. Now that was Guy Ritchie, who I really like his like first two movies, and then it just falls off a cliff. just garbage. literally, Sherlock falls off a cliff after an absurdly cringy chess scene. So, yeah. Oh god, that movie is so bad, man.
Yeah, and I've had to talk about it extensively. I have had to analyze that movie way more than anyone should.
That's a shame.
Fucking quiz up in here.
That movie is not worth analyzing.
Talk about what is the symbolism of the chess game, and I'm like, I have some ideas. Like, I've no PhD in English literature, but I think I could figure this one out. Just fucking.
Now, but see, Sherlock doesn't wear a shirt, and he gets in fights. So
yeah, the beloved Englishman that we all know and love.
Yeah, punches people.
You don't remember Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Fight Club? The classic Doyle post final problem tale.
I like the idea of that coming out as like a children's picture book. Sherlock Holmes, the Adventure of the Fight Club.
Yeah, like
with like Magic School Bus style pictures.
Just people fucking beat to a pulp.
But very colorful.
I mean, we do know that the man was a good boxer, and he was strong.
Yeah.
Like some guy
So-
bends an iron like fire poker, and he's like, "Yeah, you better not mess with me again." And Sherlock's like, dude walks off or whatever, and Sherlock's like, "Yeah, all right." And he like bends the fire poker back straight. Like, he could have done it. He could have gone the distance in the underground fighting rings.
Yeah, that's one of those like, let's take offhand lines and like make them core to the character.
Yep. Pretty much. And it's yeah. I don't even know like so going through like Sherlock Holmes and stuff, I can see like the very very clearly see the origins of like cop shows and everything, right? Like that formula of like, well, we think it's this person. Oh, it wasn't this person. Oh, it was this unlikely scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and there are other detective stories.
Yeah. No,
Like
it
Poirot
wasn't
or
the first,
whatever.
but it's still one of those leading
It's genre.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know at what point people decided that like Sherlock in adaptations anyway that Sherlock Holmes is gonna be a dick. Like that when that archetype came about. It was so consistent across a lot of the adaptations we watched. Yeah, no, shirtless brawler, detective extraordinaire.
Yeah, I feel like TV is not equipped to handle like antisocial characters without playing them up, I would say.
Yeah, fair.
They're just like unwilling to have slightly off. You have to
mean,
like dial everything
my-
up to 10.
My thing is like
Not necessarily that you have to, but just that like
yeah,
people
if you
making
wanted-
that
yeah,
stuff
you'll
feel
get-
like they need to.
yeah, and for a lot of I'm sure I don't doubt that this just tests better. Like, there's a reason why they're doing it, and it's not because they're like, man, Sherlock Holmes is so boring. What if he was like a bare knuckle boxer who was addicted to heroin instead of casually using drugs?
Yeah. I will actually say that was one of the things that stood out to me about the Fantastic Beasts movie.
Okay.
Was the main character of that is just kind of awkward and antisocial, but like they didn't dial him up. He's just kind of weird and awkward. It was weird watching a movie with a character like it felt different. Like I just haven't seen movies with a character like that who's just like not blown out antisocial, just
Yeah.
like not social, like not like just kind of, a little introverted. It's just
Yeah.
weird seeing a protagonist like that because that's not normal.
And I think there's still room for that adaptation be made, like
Totally.
because like Sherlock Holmes, I guess the word that's like coming to mind is like it's kind of quaint, right? Like there's the occasional like moment of violence or like like physical conflict, but overall, like it's pretty nice at the end of the day, with maybe the exception of like Final Problem and all that stuff. But I'm thinking like Downton Abbey was a nice show. Like no one had to get fucking stabbed in that or like whatever. They didn't need to resort to like extremes. Like you could do a Sherlock Holmes thing with that sort of like feel to it, and I think it would work well.
Yeah.
And then
I feel like the comparison for me would be the British cop show, like Inspector Lewis or Inspector Morse stuff.
okay,
Which is
I'm out of
again
my
based
element
on,
here, but
they're based on the books about
Yeah.
Detective Morse, which is that kind of thing. But it's like those are more a straight, adaptation of just they're not like crazy stuff happening. It's it's a cop show, but they're not like complete dicks or whatever. Like
yeah,
just, dudes.
They're just doing their job. They're just two
Yeah.
average guys. No, that was the other thing with like the NCIS thing, episode that we watched. Like, and I think I guess I don't know. Like in modern cop, it's even been so long since I've seen like Law and Order SVU or something. But this dude was like they find you know, there was, oh, we think it's this person. It's not. Oh, it's this person. No, it's actually not. And then it's like, oh, fuck, it's this person. And she, like, made her roommate's death look like a suicide. And that's why this person was hung in the beginning in such a weird way. And, like, all this stuff. And the person that they, like, discovered it's her. She's, like, in this room. And dude is fucking pacing around her, just berating the shit out of her. Like, I'm no lawyer, but there's definitely a case for like mental and emotional abuse. Like, you're going beyond what you need to, sir. Like, and he's supposed to be like our Sherlock Holmes character, of course. I'm just okay.
Look, TV was irreparably changed by 24. Screaming and yelling at people is like just, you know, part of.
Yeah, but when did 24? When was that on? When was that? What was the original, like, roughly, just rough, like, no earlier?
2000s.
Okay, because I know NCIS, like the one we watched, aired in like 2002, 2001. It was post 9/11, but it was just barely.
Yeah, I mean, post 9/11 being the key one there. If it's post 9/11, then you're gonna have the shouting. The closer you get to that, the more shouting.
Really?
Yeah. We were not, in terms of interrogations, yeah, we were not fucking around. That's just a thing.
That's, oh yeah, okay, that's fair. I guess I never, like, realized that correlation. Huh. I wonder if there's a way to sneak this into my test.
I don't know.
Bring up a Sherlock Holmes adaptation. Blame 9/11 for all.
I mean, if it's aggressively about going after people and, you know, and angry, then it's right after 9/11. That's probably influential, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know, like, it was weird because, like, it's not like, I don't know, it's not like it was like I mean, there's no nice way to say this, but it wasn't like a terrible murder. Like, some of the shit that goes down in SVU, it's just like, yeah,
well, SVU is like the
next
worst
level. Yeah, like next level. Like, everybody
like specifically
is a horrible, terrible person.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, okay, she killed 2 people, that's fine. But she's also, like, just a chick who's an artist, and you're going a little hard on her. Like, not that it justifies her killing people, but, you know. I don't know.
Bad cop, bad cop.
The flawless strategy. Bad cop, worse cop.
Exactly. There is no good cop.
Not in there's nothing good about NCIS. I don't know how that show took off.
I like that show.
Really?
For a while.
For
yeah,
a while,
I like the
okay.
characters. It's fun. But
Maybe
it definitely, I mean, it also did the thing of being procedural, generally, and then doing bigger plots where they were dealing with terrorism stuff, like occasionally, where stuff would get more complicated. It just had like a good rhythm to it as a TV show.
Which NCIS
as far
are
as
you thinking of?
Original NCIS.
Okay, which is the
With
one
Mark
with
Harmon.
which is the one with white-haired guy and goth girl that gives them the ratings?
Yeah, that's the original. That's original.
That's the
NCIS.
original.
They
Okay,
just,
so
they
this
just
is
changed
a-
the cast over time.
Did they? Okay.
So they're characters that changed, that came in and out.
Okay. Like, major characters as well?
Yes, like regular on the team. I think like two of the main characters who I think of as like central features on that show were not in it at the start of the series.
That doesn't seem. There's just so many that I don't actually know which one we watched anymore. Like, now I'm questioning myself. Maybe it wasn't
That's fair.
NCIS.
Maybe it wasn't NCIS.
Doesn't look like it was CSI.
Was it JAG?
It most certainly was not JAG.
Well, because that's what NCIS is, theoretically a spin-off of JAG. It is a spin-off series. Technically.
I can't remember the actor's fucking name. Oh, this is good about. Okay, so there's CSI, there's NCIS, there's CSI Miami.
Mark Harmon is the main character of NCIS.
That's definitely not it.
The main actor.
He was not in
Gibbs.
that show.
Okay. Then I don't know what show you're talking about.
Why do I always get myself into these situations? I don't like this.
See, your problem was you said it was NCIS, and I know too much about NCIS.
Just rolled with
I
it.
called
Yeah,
you
that's
out on
true. You didn't. Okay, calling me out like I intentionally.
Yeah.
It's
Just suddenly like worked you
yeah.
until you were questioning what show it was.
I mean, and then even like it's very like, man, they changed out all the original actors at one point. Like that's a pretty big change.
Not all of them. Like Mark Harmon was always on the show. He's the staple.
Yeah, but like thinking from my perspective, like what I saw was definitely not that. I'm like, man, they really did go through everybody.
Well, whatever. It doesn't actually matter. It was a cop show.
Oh, okay. Wow, I was off. How did I fucking forget? It was Law and Order Criminal Intent.
Oh.
Even
yeah, that's
worse
bad.
than. Yeah, no, that's way
a bad
worse.
show.
I was like, okay, yeah, no. NCIS, slightly better. Still not a huge fan, but whatever. Criminal Intent was fucking terrible. Like, it was awful.
Look, it had the bug from Men in Black. And that's the only takeaway. It had that guy.
Was that
Vincent D'Onofrio.
yeah, the main guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this makes a lot more sense. Also the scene changes like every 4 seconds. Like fucking Antony and Cleopatra up in here. Like cut to do the fade out. Do the fade in with the time, the date, the location. You get the full picture in. You have someone say, fuck, I can't believe we lost him. Fade out, fade back in, different time, different date, different place. Like, and there was so many scene changes. And I don't know how people like, ugh. I mean, SVU was not great either, but at least it wasn't that bad.
That's fair.
No. Okay. Everything is falling into place.
I don't remember how many seasons Criminal Intent had.
Probably too many. Probably. Hasn't every Law and Order had like 27 seasons or like 100 or something?
No. I mean, Criminal Intent I don't think lasted that long. There was like a British Law and Order that I don't think lasted that long.
It's because it's in Britain. They ran out of crime ideas. There's only so much that could be going on.
Yeah. But yeah, no, original and SVU, I think both went for a pretty long time.
SVU went for an absurdly long time. My sister used to be really into it. Like she owned probably like the first 15 seasons on DVD.
Owning Law and Order and DVD seems insane to me unless you like actually don't have cable. Because those shows are just on all the time.
I mean, we still don't have cable. I never did.
That's fair.
But also, like, she would just watch through them in order and then watch through them again. She didn't want to start. You can't just start in the middle of Law and Order SVU. There's so much story. I'm sure that the main characters each had some sort of bullshit dark history going on that they had to solve over the course of their police careers.
I'm not sure of that.
Something. There's something. There's always something.
You're not wrong, but it could be like where it just comes up at the last episode.
Oh no.
Like they bring it up in the first episode and the last episode.
When they pull a Doyle. I've been dealing with the trauma of this event for my entire life. What? We've been working together like 25 years. How have you never brought this up? We've done so many crimes that relate to this event. I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now. Okay.
It's like, gotta get Spectre up in here.
The best part about Law and Order SVU is that they brought in Ice-T. Like, we got him.
Got him.
And then eventually both of the main characters just dipped, and they still were going.
Yeah. That's how those shows just keep going. They just keep rolling. ER did it.
Yeah, that's before my time. Little bit. I remember when I was little, it was still on because my mom watched it all the time. But, like, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, ER was before my bedtime when I was very little. But then I got to watch late period ER.
Okay. Yeah, no, my mom still has, like, an ER mug from the 90s. And
the most memorable thing about ER to me is there's an episode that starts with, like, a helicopter falling on a major character.
Yep, that was a thing. I remember that, like, someone was talking about it. Because, yeah, I brought this mug to a practicum, and the English teacher was like, wow, that's, like, some deep cut stuff. Like, Clooney's still on that mug. I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess. I had no idea.
They're talking about bringing it back, because, of course, they are.
I mean, naturally. What are you going to do? Create a new medical show? What are you going to do? Make a spin-off of a medical show and name it something different and label it as a spin-off? I don't think so.
Because only old people watch TV, so if you want to get them all watching the same thing, you have to bring back things that were popular before that they remember.
Dude, it's so true, though. Like, I don't even know. I reference this a lot, and I make fun of my mom for it because she watches Blue Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
But she watches on, like, Netflix or whatever. And my dad is 100. I think I've mentioned this. My dad is 100% the kind of person to, like, come home, turn on the TV, complain about nothing being on, and then watching everything and still flicking through channels. And we don't have cable or satellite, so, like, we're working with, like, the 5 channels that are, you know, just broadcast. And you know, he'll settle on something until he gets bored and then flicks channels to the same garbage that was on 10 minutes ago. And, like, they watch Netflix. They have Hulu. Like, they watch some shows. I'm like, you have... Between Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, you should never have to watch garbage. But here we are. You're watching iZombie for no reason. Like, there's so much more things you could be doing with your time. Like, if you're flicking through channels and Antique Roadhouse is on, absolutely, I understand. You keep that shit on. I don't even know if there is a place that has old episodes of Antique Roadshow. If there is, someone please let me know. But, like,
Gotta find out what those 1990s values are. That stuff.
yeah, man. And then adjust for inflation, and then react accordingly.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, in Russia, Anya's little brother is getting into Smallville. I don't know why. Like,
Weird.
Russian 10-year-old watching Smallville. Like, when did that show end?
I don't remember.
A while ago. Like,
years
it's not
ago.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, not recently.
So I was, like, blown away. I'm like, wait, like, Superman Smallville? She's like, yes? Is there another one? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, like, this. I don't know how to handle this information. Is it
not
a
that
dub?
old.
Is it subbed? Is it dubbed? I need to know.
Subs
these
are
things.
dubbed. Yeah, that's
Like,
important.
I think it's dubbed. I think they dubbed it in Russian. I think you have a Russian Superman.
I mean, I read that comic. It's called Red Sun. It's like, what if Superman...
Fucking of course. Fucking of course there's a Superman who is a communist. Unreal. Ugh.
There's a miniseries. There's an
I would
Elseworlds.
hope so. It's a mini-series. Full
It's like a
mainline
single-
comic. Decades
graphic
running
novel.
Soviet Superman.
No, not that long.
They'd call it something ridiculous like, I don't know, Ocean Herr Show. Like, very good. That's just his name.
I don't remember what they called him.
Was his little colic curl thing, was it flipped the opposite way?
I don't think so.
Like the classic. How do we know which one's evil?
Look, his hair thing is to make the S because he's Superman. So
Is it in the
but
shape
sometimes
of
you
an
can't
S?
see his chest, so you only see his face. So he has an S on his forehead
okay.
too. That's like theoretically why that swiggle is there as like a comic book art thing. Although then they stopped doing it because they were dumb. They forgot.
I mean,
you
Superman.
always have to know it's Superman.
I mean, the guy has a lot of superpowers. One of the ones he doesn't have is a good disguise.
I mean, he has this.
He has a pair of glasses.
His disguise is his personality. Okay, he's a comic book
guess.
character.
Much
That posture.
like Sherlock Holmes. Boom. Disguises referenced a lot. Talks about how he like changes completely in front of Watson's eyes. Yeah, Superman, Sherlock Holmes. Got you thinking now, don't I?
No.
One and the same, perhaps.
No. No.
You don't think Superman got here a bit earlier than originally reported, and then like hung out in Victorian England for a while, smoking crack and solving mysteries?
There's probably a Batman comic where Batman is Sherlock Holmes, but I don't know.
Like, I'm thinking about it, I'd probably read that comic.
Probably be about
got-
like Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, like it'd have to be like, no, they would do the thing where Moriarty is like there the whole time, like in the background. Yeah, there's no way.
You have to have your
Even though
supervillains.
I think the concept of just an average, completely normal, like mundane detective story, but it's Superman. Like, I don't know. It's amusing. It's more amusing to me than it should be.
That's fair. There's that the old Superman live action TV show where like Clark Kent was like cool. And then Superman was kind of the lame one in terms of like being square, basically. I forget which one that was, but it was like a black and white TV show, which I like that idea. I just like that idea, and that was
Like
as like in comparison to like the Superman movies where Clark Kent is like the most
he's like
lame,
awkward,
annoying
and
person.
lame,
Yeah, I don't.
Everyone's like,
so
oh
that was
shit,
under,
it's Superman.
but in the Superman the animated series from the 90s that I grew up with and love, like that again is more drawing from that kind of Clark Kent where he's more, just a competent reporter dude instead of being a total dweeb.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm less, for whatever reason, I've been less into that way of portraying Clark Kent.
Like you're less into the dweeb thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean,
I like more like you get the lameness comes in Superman's like square jawed, hands on his hips, posing like it's Superman's like the pure one, and then Clark Kent is more like a actual journalist, like a real human being.
I mean, it makes sense too. I feel like, I don't know. This is coming from someone who has like zero fucking context for anything. So like, I saw a scene in Smallville once, and that's like that's about it.
There are like arguments to make about which one is the real, like, is Clark Kent the Mask or is Superman the Mask in terms of his personality kind of stuff.
Was it Superman or was it Clark Kent who destroyed the entire goddamn city in Man of Steel? You tell me.
That was some asshole. Well, in Man of Steel, he's definitely has no difference between which version he is. So, There's no difference except sometimes he had a beard.
He has a beard.
As Clark Kent, yeah.
Oh,
Early in that movie.
okay,
He's like
not
basically
as
Wolverine in the beginning of that movie. He's like working on an oil rig.
What? Why? Now I need some context.
Man of Steel's a weird movie.
Apparently, like now, it wasn't the trailer that sold me. You guys should have started with he works on an oil rig.
Yeah, and then in like Man of Steel 2,
there's a second one.
Yeah, that was the one with Batman.
How did I thought the original one was the one with Batman.
No. There was Man of Steel. Then there was Man of Steel 2, Dawn of Justice, I think.
Where Batman that flew way under my radar. Okay.
The first one is where he destroys the city.
All right.
And then the second one is just where he, fights Batman.
I mean, I was vividly picturing like I knew he destroyed the city, but as far as trailers go, I was definitely remembering the second one then, because I remember people being all pissed off because like they revealed everything in that trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are bad.
0 for 2 tonight.
But the second one is actually so bad I find it kind of funny. So it has its pluses, whereas the first one just references 9/11 imagery, so I hate it. Like, it just makes me incredibly angry.
Yeah.
Also, it's terrible. But yeah. But another, just on the adaptation thing, there's one thing I really want to talk about, which is the Ninja Turtles. We need to talk about the Ninja Turtles. Because the Ninja Turtles start as an independent comic book, black and white. It's a straight, like, Daredevil parody, basically. Like, the Ninja Turtles get created by the same chemical sludge truck accident that gives Daredevil his powers.
Isn't that canon? Isn't that, like, fully canon?
Well, no, just because the Ninja Turtles aren't in the Marvel universe.
Okay.
But if you look at the drawing, it's clearly a truck swerving out of a blind man who's clearly stand-in for Matt Murdock.
Okay.
It's like if the Ninja Turtles were owned by Marvel, it would be canon, basically.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But it's a parody of Frank Miller comics specifically. So it has like that overacting narration, that grimdark stuff is all in there. Like, it ends with them cutting Shredder's head off. Like, it's very violent. It's not a kid-friendly comic book. But then it gets turned in to the most kid-friendly popular cartoon series that I loved. It was like the first piece of media I loved. So then that becomes the dominant, like, popular culture understanding of the Turtles, is that cartoon, which is wildly different from the comic book. Like, even the thing where they all have their own color, like the blue, purple, and
orange and red.
Orange and red. In the comic, they
throw this guy over here throwing fucking Mikey under the bus.
Yeah, sorry, Mikey. In the original, they just all wear red. They're all red. Okay. They're all Raphael.
They're
kind of all rough, and they're all like that. They're much all grimmer. Like, it's much less of the
They're
fun.
They're not making stuff. Fucking pizza jokes all the time. Going, whoa, dude.
Yeah, no, that's not. It's less of a thing.
Oh.
So then the TV show completely then ends up influencing every other incarnation of the Turtles that comes after that. To like, until you get to the most recent series of the comic books, the IDW series, then like sort of is like a new start for this franchise, and kind of just starts taking stuff from all the different versions of the Turtles to kind of make the best version, where it takes the color identity stuff, but it works it in to where like Raphael isn't part of the group, and until they like find him again, they don't get their colors, like they don't earn them or whatever.
Okay.
it's the only that comic is only the second version that has Krang in it, because Krang was originally created for the cartoon and wasn't in any of the other versions. Like even the second Ninja Turtles cartoon didn't use Krang. They just used the Utroms, which are kind of this alien race that is not exactly Krang's species. They're not just brains, but they are weird little head alien things that were in the comics. So it's just weird stuff about like the way that stuff works. Like I don't think the original stuff for a lot of this pop culture stuff isn't the thing that matters. It's the thing that got the most popularity in the popular culture is like the thing that becomes important. Like with the Universal monsters, like those first series of movies that had talking in them are like the iconic images of pop culture of a lot of those creatures, and that sort of persists, even though there were earlier silent film versions of them and they're the books, but people don't care as much because those images are like set in pop culture canon.
Yeah, and you can't change that. You can't just go changing the fucking canon unless Disney buys you.
And so like, but that's just what I mean about this stuff is more fluid. Like you can change this stuff. It's just why are you changing it, and what end? What's the goal of what you're doing and using this story at all? Like one of a thing that pisses me off about the third X-Men movie is like they kill Cyclops at the beginning, which is like fine. Cyclops sucks, and your version of Cyclops especially sucks. But like, why are you making X-Men if you're not gonna like figure out how a place for Cyclops in it? Like, how are you adapting this story in a way that like this character who's kind of important to it in certain ways, you don't like figure out something to do with him. You're just like, let's just fucking murder him for no reason and nobody cares.
I mean,
like he doesn't even get an emotional reaction of, oh my god, they killed that guy. It's like, why the fuck did you do that? That was a waste. I don't know. It's just like
maybe they thought they were making it better. Didn't you answer it? Didn't you answer it in the very beginning of that? He sucks. So we fucking killed him.
Yeah. But no one cares.
Because But I never knew. That's interesting about the Ninja Turtles, though. Like, I never knew that they started out more grim.
Yes. And it's definitely a parody thing, but it definitely because they're targeting this specific. Again, it's making fun of a very specific thing.
Yeah,
Frank Miller comics,
but then you gotta make it kid friendly.
Then you gotta make it kid friendly. It's a different beast, different animal,
different turtle.
It's like whether in the original Splinter is a rat who transforms into a humanoid person, whereas in the cartoon Splinter is a person that gets turned into a rat man.
What?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know either of those things. You told me he wasn't always just like a rat dude.
No. He gets transformed by the same stuff at the same time as the turtles. The turtles turn from, normal turtles to...
So what causes them to... Okay, so the turtles are turtles. And they turn into big turtles. They turn into big boys.
Yeah.
And in one version, the Splinter is a rat who turns into a bigger rat, right?
A rat man, yes.
I got you. That follows. In a different version, he is a human who turns into a rat guy.
Yes.
Why a rat in that version? Is he like holding a rat? Does a rat fall in at the same time?
Like touches a rat after like the same like Bebop and Rocksteady get transformed by mutation. They were two people, and then you touch the mutation, then you touch the next animal you touch is like you then turn into that kind of animal.
How convenient.
Yeah.
So like if we would have touched something a bit cooler, we could have had like a better animal as a sensei for the turtles?
In the original cartoon, yes.
Okay.
In the comic book, again, he was a rat originally.
Mm-hmm. No, and
And then
that makes far
IDW
more
comic,
sense.
in the IDW comic, he was also a rat originally. What makes less sense is like, it's like the connection between him and Shredder is
Oh,
so
boy.
in the cartoon they're actual rivals in Japan in a dojo. In the original version, Splinter was a rat owned by the person who was rivals with Shredder in a dojo who Shredder murdered. So then Splinter is out for revenge for his human
Yeah.
master that he only knew when he was a normal rat and learned martial arts from watching him.
Naturally. How else are you gonna fucking learn martial arts?
In
as a rat?
the my favorite in the Ninja Turtles movie, the first one, live action one, they have like scenes of Splinter as a rat in a cage mimicking the martial arts moves. It's amazing.
Oh no. Oh no.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, that's
Because that's the other thing. So then the movie, the first movie, is like tries to split the difference, where it's more a straight adaptation of the story from the comics, but it's more at the with it's dials it more towards the tone of the, like it's obviously it's darker than the cartoon, but it's more towards that audience as the target. But it like a lot of the events and staging or stuff is like directly from the comic. That's stuff that didn't happen in the TV series, which is also weird.
Yeah, no, that's
But
still just-
the movie ends with Shredder getting crushed in a garbage truck instead of having his head cut off.
I didn't.
More kid friendly.
Couldn't you have him fall like into a giant paper shredder?
I mean, he does fall off a building into the garbage truck,
Okay, but it's not a paper
and then
shredder. Like, this is not very-
Casey Jones crushes him and says, "Oops."
yeah,
He murders him.
That's
Man.
about right.
Although Shredder doesn't
Whoops.
die, because then he comes back as Super Shredder in the next movie.
Super Shredder.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that he's even more powerful.
Well,
than
all he ends up
regular
doing
Shredder.
though is walking under a dock and punching supporting beams till the dock falls on him, and then he's defeated. Like, he kind of just beats himself. Super Shredder is a little underwhelming when you look back on it in terms of what he actually does. Not
What
very
made him
effective.
super? Was he just pointier?
Yeah, he
He
had
had like
spikes.
more spikes naturally.
Bigger and more spikes.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, get swole, and get
He
pointy.
was more like a monster instead of in the original movie. They try to play him off as more of a Darth Vader type. He does say
Yeah,
to
the
a bunch of
greatest villain.
street urchins, "I am your father." Literally, "I am your father." That happens in that movie.
Great. I mean, Darth Vader though, best villain. So if you're gonna mimic someone,
Darth Vader's pretty good. But is he really a villain?
you can find out in a future podcast when we talk about Darth Vader, Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Whenever that happens.
Whenever that happens.
I am still rock hard for that comic. It is
Cool.
It is still like saying it's my favorite comic doesn't do much because I don't have too much experience, but it is like also just one of my favorite pieces of media of all time. Like it's shot right up there. It fucked me up
cool.
for like a day. Maybe 2 days. I was just like, God damn.
Fuck me up, Darth Vader. Fuck me up real good.
I went up to Disney and I was like, I don't know what you guys have planned for the franchise, but I want Darth Vader to just fuck me up for like a whole weekend. I want to know who I am. I don't want to know where I am. I just want to have my mind swirling with like a helmet and a guy and a lightsaber. Like I just want to be out of it for 48 hours, not knowing anything. And they did it. They fucking delivered.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could go on and on, but I think that's a podcast.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems like a podcast.
Yeah. So you can email us at saltcirclepodcast@gmail.com. Find us on soundcloud.com/saltcircle. Find us on Twitter at saltcirclepod. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, various podcasting sources that pull from those places as Salt Circle Podcast. And I'm on Twitter at Comic Panels.
And I'm on Twitter at bean_LP. Thanks for watching. You got any witticisms? Got
Turtle
anything?
power.
Turtles, count them off.
Splinter taught them to be ninja teens.
Did he also teach them about pizza, or was that sort of a natural? I mean,
that
he's
was
a
a
rat.
natural.
He's a rat, so I'm just saying.
I don't think
Hey
he
guys,
taught them.
check this out.
He did not share their affection. He did not share their complete enthusiasm and
But he's a
mania for
fucking-
pizza.
In the versions in which he is a rat originally. Oh no, because he was like a house rat. He wasn't like dumpster diving.
Yeah.
Okay,
He was,
that makes sense.
I mean, he was just because he was an orphaned rat. His master died, and somehow he moved.
Okay, so he was.
He did move from Japan to the United States.
Well, you know, the fucking rats are always on ships.
Yeah, I
They
don't
go
know how
from-
that gets him to New York from Japan.
They go from port to port.
You think he'd wind up in like California instead of New York, but whatever.
Don't
You know.
I mean, how did the rat get from Japan to New York? I mean, the rat then fell into like super sludge and got mutated. But
Also, because it's comics, like
Ask you
it
the
comes
real
from
question.
like their version of Japan is basically depicted as like feudal Japan, even though it's theoretically present day.
yeah, naturally, there's no other way to have Japan exist. Fucking yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
What the
the
shell?
IDW comics books fix that by making them like reincarnations of people from feudal Japan.
Okay. I mean, they tried
There's
it.
magic
There's
involved and
effort.
stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oof. Peace.